This is as important. This again, we're back to the basics of sound. We haven't moved yet to the next lesson. Second video. 11 مش بطل. The waves, when they move into a space, they interact with the surrounding, and they interact with each other, right? These two speakers are pointing towards who? Good. These two speakers are pointing towards who? Good. So, and this is part of the design of this room, is that if they only rely on two speakers, that there will be, no signal, no volume. They have to put two extra speakers to have more or less even sound across the hall, right? But as the sound moves, again back to the wave, if it hits a surface, or it hits another wave, or it hits another object, it does bounce, right? So there are certain characteristics of waves in general. It happens in water, it happens in gases, it happens in everything, that are very important for us. So first one is sound reflection, right? What happens in sound reflection when the sound wave hits a smooth surface, solid surface, it bounces back. And as it bounces back, as Magid mentioned, as we saw in the wave, it dissipates to a wider angle and it loses energy, right? Very similar like to this cartoon, right? And this is actually another visualization of it. So the wave coming from the left, bouncing to the surface below, and then it bounces back to the right. And the angle of reflection is very much like light, right? You go to this angle, it goes to this angle. It goes to a more obtuse angle, it goes to a more obtuse angle. If it goes to a 90-degree angle, it bounces back to you, right? So the angle of reflection really depends on where the wave is coming from and where it bounces back. Very important. Simple stuff looks like, so what? Why this is important? That's why singing in the shower is nice, right? You have the whole theater for yourself, and it echoes, and it's nice, and it feels like, oh, why my voice is so nice, because it bounces in the walls. This is a very flat surface, and there is no acoustic treatment whatsoever in the shower, and that's why you like it, right? But what really happens in here, hopefully not the previous one, what you hear in any space is a combination of the direct signals of the waves coming me to you, but then the sound from my mouth bounces everywhere, and you get a direct signal, but also a reflection from other surfaces, right? So how you perceive my voice is not only dependent on my voice. Obviously, it's dependent on my voice, but also dependent on the environment, right? A big part of that has to do with the sound reflection. The second thing is called sound diffusion. It's a sort of reflection, but it happens, it's a scatter. Think about it this way. If the sound goes into a smooth surface, it goes to the right angle as exactly, it reflects, bounces back at the same angle. But if it goes to an irregular surface, it scatters all over the place. I'll show you why this is important. I wonder if any of you have seen structures like this in rooms, in lecture rooms, sometimes in community centers or in theaters. This is called a sound diffuser. So as you can see, it has lots of blocks that has different angles, and the purpose of which they put it in different parts of the room, and the purpose of which is to diffuse sounds. So they put, there are certain, when we create a new space for music production, it's important that there are software actually that take the dimension of the room and then simulates what a sound would sound like in this room at different frequencies and give you a recommendation about what acoustic treatment you should do for the sound to be as direct, as scattered and controlled. The problem is, not the problem. It may be, don't get me wrong, it may be nice actually not to have any acoustic treatment. This is the shower example, right? Like if you enjoy much more singing in the shower rather than in your living room, because the living room is full of fabric and the sound is dull and you don't sound as nice. Why am I sound like that? I'll go to the shower and sing, right? And that's what happens, for example, in cathedrals. And so all of the designs of the old churches and cathedrals was actually intentional, meant to have lots of reflection. So when the priest sings, oh, it stays, and the whole echo, it stays like for 2 or 3 seconds. It gives you that sense of, which is not good or bad. It's not my job. But if you play drums in a cathedral, it's a nightmare. Why? Because it doesn't have any acoustic treatment. You put boom, 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 boom. So you cannot play any beat, right? So if a drummer tried to play in a cathedral, it's going to be disastrous, right? But at that time it was designed. They didn't have drums playing at cathedrals at that time, so it was designed for that purpose. One of the most complicated exercises that you can imagine is actually treating a cathedral for a live performance. It's actually because there are lots of good cathedrals space-wise, but acoustically they are horrible. So actually to convert that, it's a lot of work. I'll show you. But that's why the diffuser is important. The second phenomenon that happens in sound is called sound diffraction. And diffraction essentially is when a sound wave goes through a small space and diffuses to a bigger space, it goes like a wave like this. Imagine this is actually like water. So if you have, if you're, ربنا يبارككم كده بتروح اجازه وعلى beach وتلاقي الويفز جايه كده, and if there are 2 big rocks قبل البيتش, when the wave comes in, it actually goes through this and then it dissipates this way. Sound waves, when it goes into this direction, like any wave, like any fluid, it actually has the tendency to spread as a new point source and goes down. Back to the questions that somebody asked. And this is very important because we use this for sound absorption. يعني, if you look around you, does anyone know what are these panels for? Go and touch it. Go and touch these panels in the back, just to get, or maybe on the coffee break. All of these are sound absorbers. All of these are not decorative. Huh? You see these tiles? These are sound absorbers. These are made of materials where the sound can get in and diffuse inside, so it doesn't bounce back to you. Because if we remove this, this room will be very echoey. Yeah? We'll have a lot of echo. So this is sort of what sound absorption happens, and part of the phenomena of sound absorption is actually sound diffraction, meaning that it goes to a porous, unlike the reflection, this is used for porous. So if you have a panel that is made of fabric, for example, you see in the studios, those sponge, tiles that they put in the wall. So they are porous because they are sponge, but then they have different shapes, so it diffracts, and then it's meant to absorb as much energy of the sound. Have you seen this before? Has anyone seen this before? Has anyone not seen this before? Did you see it before? Good. And the other application for sound diffraction is actually horns. You remember, I'm not sure how many speakers, but good, okay. So, using this for, and again, the one that you hold in your hand, what's it called? For announcements, stuff like that, what's it called? Yeah, so, what's it called? It's a speaker, the microphone. Blue horn is? Blow horn. Not like it's exactly, so the horn that you know, trumpet, so the way when you blow in a trumpet, it actually spreads. So it's exactly the same. So that, the design of that cone really affects how sound actually, the angle the sound disperses on. So we use this for different purposes, right? Whether in speakers or in horns or in anything. And this also happens in light. So this is what we see every morning, and thank God for nature. But the light rays that comes from the sun, by the time it reaches the earth, it's actually straight. It's not like this. And it only happens like this when it hits something and then diffracts, right? So you only see this in the clouds, right? Looks beautiful. The second thing is refraction and absorption. So it's essentially, well, we covered half of it, but when the sound wave hits any surface, part of that energy, okay, so you kick a ball in a wall, we agree that it goes and bounces back, but as it hits the ball, some of this energy actually gets absorbed in the wall, right? And there is different materials have different absorption coefficient. That's why these are porous, so it absorbs actually more rather than the reflex. So these are not meant, if you look at one wall, 50% of this wall, or maybe 40% of this wall, is now covered with a material that absorbs the sounds rather than reflects the sound. So it takes that energy and calm it inside, because as the sound wave gets inside, it diffracts and reflects within the material of the porous material, so it doesn't bounce back. So you damp it down. And we do this all the time for acoustic treatment, as I'll explain later. So acoustic treatment is exactly what we're talking about. So what is acoustic treatment of a room? It is the use of design and materials to optimize the acoustics of the space where the music is being produced. And why is that important? Because unless you do that, you have no control of what the people will hear. So you want to, as much as possible, not completely, but as much as possible, reduce the influence, the impact of the room itself on what people perceive, so you can do your mix and give the mix that you want, give the color that you want. Back to the cathedral piece, they didn't have sound systems, they didn't have reverbs, they didn't have computers. So the only way of creating that is to design the space this way. And it's beautiful, right? But when you are in a theater, big theater, and you want to have drums that doesn't have that reverb, and vocals that does have lots of that reverb, and guitar that have a different reverb, and piano that has different reverb, for you to be able to control all of that in the system, you have to suppress as much as you can the influence of the room. You want to say something?
I just want to say something, but I don't want to confuse things. As before, we were talking about frequencies and how we hear frequencies. With reverb, it's about time. The more we have the proper acoustic treatment, the less time the sound will travel. So in a cathedral, it'll be 6 seconds from when I say hello until it dissipates. In a proper room, should be about 2 seconds. You don't want it to be 1 second. You want it to be 2 seconds, so it sounds natural. So when he's saying acoustic treatment and all these stuff, it's all about, because the more the sound is going to travel, the more it's going to overlap. So it's going to be all over the place. So the more stuff we have, acoustic treatment, the less time it will travel, the more you guys will pay attention to what I'm saying. If there's echo everywhere, I have to speak really slow so that sound will...
Good, thanks, Peter. And this is, so I brought you like a couple of photos just to show you the acoustic treatment. So this is one, all of these are internet, you know. But can you tell me what is the acoustic treatment in this room? Ceiling, what's happening in the ceiling? Okay. What's special about it? Why they are hanging like this? Why, if it is just for absorption, why they just it would be cheaper to stick it on the wall? Mark. Yeah, it looks cool actually. No, like I want somebody.
It's a trick question. Think about it.
برافو عليك. فالساوند actually, think about like ping pong balls, right? Sound waves are like ping pong balls. When you shoot ping pong balls all over the place, some of them will hit the space in between and reflects and bounce back to the back of the panel, right? And then it will bounce back to the ceiling and bounce back to the back of the panel again. So it's like traps. So we call these sound traps, huh? So the material itself is one thing, and the design is one thing. What else in this room has good acoustic treatment? Bravo عليك. It's back. So this is another sound diffuser, but in a more elegant way. So very similar to the sound diffuser that we saw at the beginning. This is another sound diffuser that only looks at spreading the sounds. Once the sound goes this way, it just goes this way, and then it finds somebody else, so it doesn't bounce back to you directly. Who of you have noticed the back glass wall of the sanctuary? And what's special about it? It's what? It's tilted. Has anyone noticed that? So the back wall, one of the tricks that we use also is having no parallel walls. So if the speakers are here facing this way, you try to make the back wall as irregular as possible. That could be wavy, could be tilted this way, could be tilted upwards. You understand what I mean? So usually it's tilted downwards, so it hits the fabric actually. But it is a design. It is a design thing. Is that you intentionally make the walls not parallel, because parallel walls are perfect for sound reflection, right? Bang, 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 bang. But if you tilt the walls, it goes here, and then it goes change the angle, and it faces another angle. So it's much easier to diffract, right? Like I think this is probably just because of the corridors. This is not for acoustic now. I think, but you're right. It could be like that. No. These are sound traps. Yes. Yes and no, depends. So, okay, look at this room. What do you see acoustic treatment in this room? We already covered one, right? No, this is the air vent. The tiles, bravo. So these tiles are porous, actually. So false ceiling, the false ceiling, it works something like this because these are porous, right? These hanging ceiling tiles are porous, and some of them has better acoustic diffraction rather than others. But it's very similar concept like this one. So sounds go through that and then, dissipates behind it so you don't hear it, right? And this is another, this is just another example. So if you see here, more or less, it's mostly diffusers, right? And in between the diffuser, the flat ones are absorbers, right? Diffusers are the irregular surface and absorbers, right? And ربنا كده لما تجيبوا منشن كبيرة يبقى عندكم في ناس عندها ما عندناش احنا حاجات دي بس this is like a home theater thing, right? Where you can have a dedicated room just to listen to music and watch movies and play PlayStation. And so this is acoustic treatment, exactly the same. So it has those red diffusers on the side and have those acoustic panels like absorbers and have the carpet. You see the carpet? Actually, this is the cheapest way if you want to do a home studio. This is the cheapest way to do absorption is to get a thick carpet, and because it's actually the diffuser. Ashraf. It depends. So, that's different. It depends on physically. When you decide to make a room for listening, the door is here. You're not going to put the speakers in front of the door. If you have to decide where you're going to put the speakers, and then decide the layout, build the layout and the acoustic treatment on that basis. Huh? They are more important. When you're doing it from scratch, you can do whatever you want. But in reality, the entrance, the walls, the electricity is really what dictates what goes where. Huh? And then you build the acoustic treatment to treat that. فاهمين? Good?